hard stop in a Jeep. That's right, this is the all-new 2018 Jeep Wrangler Unlimited Rubicon. And code name is JL now. Just like my initials. Pretty cool. The JL is a very important Wrangler because a lot of brand new features come with it. For example, you can now get blind spot monitors and other safety features. You can get a 4-cylinder turbo engine. You can get an 8-speed automatic transmission, which is really good. And you get a lot of nice stylistic elements that are retro references to the past. You get lightweight, high-strength aluminum doors, hinges, the hood. The hood is brand new and it actually looks amazing with the vents. The windshield frame is also lightweight. The rear swing door is magnesium, and all that helps reduce the weight and improve fuel economy. Available are the Command Track and Rock Track 4x4 systems. The next generation Dana axles, you have True-Lock electric front and rear axle lockers, a Track-Lock limited slip differential, 33-inch off-road tires, and for the first time ever in the Sahara models, you get a 4-high automatic mode for the all-wheel drive for a set-it-and-forget-it kind of mode. Needless to say, this thing still comes with industry-leading ground clearance and approach, breakover, and departure angles. On the Rubicon, you get the Dana 44 front and rear axles with a 4-low ratio of 4:1. A 4.10 front and rear axle ratio is standard. Same goes for the True-Lock locking differentials. And check this out, equipped with the automatic transmission, the crawl ratio is a mind-blowing 84.2:1. That is crazy. Obviously on the Rubicon, you also get the skid plates because you need to protect everything that's important. You're also able to remove the corners of the front bumper just to get that extra clearance. The Rubicon models with a 33-inch tires can push through about 30 inches of water and can tow up to 3,500 pounds. The 3.6-liter V6 Pentastar engine makes 285 horsepower and 260 pound-feet of torque. Made it to the new 8-speed automatic transmission, this is the first Wrangler ever that actually feels not quick, but brisk. I mean, you step on it and it actually moves. It's really good. Now you can actually merge in traffic. The exterior of the Rubicon looks really cool, especially in this red color. The front LED headlights actually produce useful light, and those LED daytime running lights look really cool as well. You get a new grille with inserts, and that overall front shape is a really good reference to the original models. In the rear, you get new taillights that are also LED, and the holder for the tire, or whatever it's called, is adjustable. So if you get a bigger tire, you can pull it up and make more room for the bigger tire. And look where that rear backup camera is located. Pretty smart. The interior is also really nice. The Rubicon gets this exclusive matte finish dashboard, which stays like this no matter what color you pick for the exterior. All the ports that are prone to water are covered because this whole dashboard is weather resistant and you can actually power wash it. Because this is a Rubicon, and one thing you're gonna get a lot of is mud inside and out. A really obvious improvement for this JL model is the revamped suspension. They again used the 5-link suspension for front and rear, but they did some massive tuning on the dampers, and this thing is actually very comfortable now versus, the very bumpy ride in the JK. And when you're on the highway, you can actually keep it within the lane. I mean, still not as good as like a regular road SUV, but it's much better than what it used to be. Technology has also moved forward. You now get the proper FCA Uconnect system. You have a choice of 3 different screen sizes. The one I have here is the 8.4, and it has Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. You also get the built-in handles, which are really cool versus the little straps in the previous generation. Roominess in the Wrangler is really good. Passengers in the rear seat have a lot of headroom and legroom, and if you have kids, they're gonna love it. The trunk is also a very good size. Thankfully, they moved the subwoofer off the floor, so now when you pump the bass, all the little stones don't go krutz as they jump up and down. And that also gave a lot of more useful cargo capacity, because with it tucked into the side, you actually get more room. And you get storage underneath the cargo floor for like recovery kit and stuff like that, which is really cool. Handling is also improved. This thing will actually turn without scaring you. In the past, the Wrangler wasn't really an on-road thing at all. Right now, even with these LT knobby tires, like, it's fine. I like it. I actually really enjoy it. Fuel economy still isn't as good as it could. I'm averaging about 16 liters per 100 kilometers, but that's mostly city, and that's mostly with me being in a hurry. So for sure you can do better. The one thing that's really cool with having a Wrangler is that the Jeep community around it is really, really there. I mean, this car has a cult following, which actually also helps the car with retaining crazy good residual values. So the fact that this one is priced at just above $60,000 doesn't mean much, because when it comes time to sell it, you're going to get a really good trade-in value. I mean, it's not going to be the 90% that Black Book Canada promises you. That's not happening. But you're going to get better money versus, get a Honda Pilot, for example. Now, I wish I could tell you all about the experience of living with a Jeep and modifying it and, what people really do with it in real life. But I don't own a Jeep, so I can't do that. But I do know somebody that does own a Jeep and will be more than happy to have a discussion with us. So let's go grab Bobby. So the one thing that, Jeep claims is that they made it more user-friendly. It's easier, like on the highway, you can actually keep it in the lane. But at the same time, they say that they didn't ruin it at all in terms of its off-road ability and the ruggedness and the whole Jeep experience. So, usually how, say, sports cars, they make them more user-friendly so people don't kill themselves, but then at the same time, they kind of take away from that purist's, like,
the feel,
little details that make a car great. So they claim here that they didn't ruin it in any way. So,
well, I can see how they would have done that. I mean, there's definitely more technology in the Jeep than what I'm used to in terms of comfort features. From what I understand, these ones here do come with a heated steering wheel. That's something that it seems like people are loving more and more
it's
now.
On right now, and it does get quite hot.
No, I feel that. I see that it's got the blind spot detections.
So it's the first time ever you can get that in a Jeep. You get like the rear cross traffic alerts and the blind spot monitors and all these safety features. There's actually a pretty large list with all the safety things that come on board.
Definitely.
So,
yeah, like there's certain things that, I understand that the companies have to abide by certain safety specifications that are set by governing bodies, but for the most part, it's stuff that, with the lives that we live every day now, busy as can be on the road, you're always multitasking no matter how much you try not to. It's good to have these safety features, blind spots in the rear cross traffic and all that. Just on a first drive, I can feel that it is smoother on the road. I'm not 100% sure as to what tweaks they've done on the suspension. It's still
they've retuned the dampers. That's a big thing. They redid the angles, how they tie into the chassis, so they redid the mounts. They claim they recalibrated the whole thing, so it's like, again, the 5-link front and rear suspension. It's on the LT tires, so it's on the knobby ones because it's a Rubicon.
Yep.
So I guess that you are used to the little mushy feeling on the road.
Definitely used to the mushy feeling on the road, trying to keep the damn thing in its lane. But no, as you said, like again, on first impressions, I feel like the suspension is definitely smoother. It's a little more responsive. The steering wheel is not as.
This one is electro-hydraulic steering
assist.
wheel.
Okay.
So I guess, is yours fully hydraulic?
Mine's fully hydraulic, which was actually a common problem on the JKs, especially if you got into lifts and bigger setups. There would be issues of the steering box actually leaking and having to get it rebuilt, especially if you go into sort of trail riding and you off-road the car because of all the pressure and the tension and the abuse that the steering column really takes when you're out on trail. So the electro hydro assist steering. I can see that being beneficial. But I do like the more direct feedback. I mean, anyone that's driven the previous model knows that you pretty much have 25% space of nothing. Feels like you're driving a Dodge Caravan.
Yeah, when I picked up this car, like the first thing I said was like, wow, it's actually not bad to drive. Like it felt quite nice.
It feels like you're driving an SUV, which is really, I mean, at the end of the day, that's what it is, but it is a bit more of a rugged SUV than what, you know, the average SUV out there would be. I am enjoying the feel of the car. The seats, I feel like they've done a slightly better job in terms of contouring the seats to the body a little bit versus the JK. Like mine has the, you know, the JK, the Rubicon seats in it, which is the leather. Sometimes there's a pinch just because of how the seat is set up, the geometry of the seat towards the back. This one feels a little bit more plush, a little bit more, you know, drive a longer distance.
Yeah.
Definitely. Everything's within arm's reach and slightly faced towards the driver, which I do like.
I like the auxiliary buttons.
That
you don't do anything right now, but apparently if you hook up a winch and all that stuff, they're there. No need to drill those buttons in the...
Exactly. Now, one of the things that I really liked when I first saw the JK is the fact that they have 4 switches built in for auxiliary, for random things that you might want to add, because every Jeep owner is going to add something to the car. It's just the way that it is. It's a huge culture. It's a huge community. It's a...
Speaking of which...
It's a sickness, if I can say that, to be honest.
What do you add to a Jeep? So what did you do to yours? What's the sequence of, like, okay, now you have a Jeep, you have a Rubicon, because if you're planning to go off-road, that's the one you really want. But what are the mods that you go through?
Well, for the most part, people, when they start getting a Jeep, I mean, nobody buys a Jeep because they just want to go to the grocery store and back. Everybody that buys a Jeep is going to have a little bit of an adventure side to them, and they want to, you know, get off the beaten path. One of the lines that you'll hear in the communities is where the pavement ends, the fun begins.
That's true.
That's kind of the motto for a lot of people that own Jeeps. Now, you won't realize what upgrades you want to do onto your Jeep until you get out there and push the limits and honestly get stuck. Once you've gotten stuck, that's when you start breaking it down, thinking, okay, I need this, I need that, just to push yourself to that next limit and enjoy your vehicle even more. So the most common modifications that anybody's going to do is they're going to upgrade the suspension. So most people will get a lift kit on their car. Usually they'll vary from an everyday, you know, daily driver kind of thing. Most people will stick between a 2.5 inch to a 3.5 inch lift. If anybody were to ask me what lift to get, geez, there's so many options that are different budgets, different price ranges, different usability for how often you off-road the car. That's usually the first step. The second step is getting bigger tires, nubbier tires, again, depending on what you're going to be doing with the car, whether you're going to be doing, you know, overlanding and camping and want slightly more. We're going through some bumps right now, sorry to go off topic, but it really is
We're in a Wrangler.
smooth.
Yeah. So how do you like the suspension? Did they really retune it?
Oh, definitely. There's definitely a retune in the suspension. I mean, with the previous generation truck, you couldn't get through that terrain that we just went through at the speed we were going without, you know,
shattering a few teeth,
bobbing around. Definitely a softer setup. Going back to the modification list, so the tires are the second thing that people usually upgrade. Again,
so this one has 33-inch tires, right?
Yes.
So how bigger of a tire can you put on it?
You can, well, that's a loaded question. You can go anywhere from, I mean, 33s is the most common tire size that people will upgrade from the factory setup. Again, I'm just referring to the previous generation, which came with just regular truck tires per se. Roughly around that 31 to 32 inch is what the factory setup was, if I'm not mistaken.
I think 30 is on the Sahara and the Sport, and then 33 is for the Rubicon.
Okay.
And I think you can upgrade to 36. What is is it Mickey Thompson that they make the...
Well, Mickey Thompson makes a great... It's just one of the many brands out there. I mean, the most common ones you're going to see is the Nitos. The Nito Grappler is a very good tire. The Toyo makes 2 fantastic tires, the MT and the AT. BF Goodrich, the KO2s are a fantastic all-terrain tire. Really quiet on the highway. You can get into the... if you want to go really aggressive, you can get into some of the Dixie Pack tires, which are, you know, straight up mud boggers. But again, the size variance will go anywhere from 33, which is a size that a lot of people will go to with a slightly more aggressive pattern if they don't want to lift the truck, Once you lift it, you start looking at things and thinking to yourself, I need more. So at that point, a lot of people will go to a 35. The average and most usable size is the 35-inch tire. And then from there, with the Rubicons, a lot of people will start upgrading to a 37-inch tire. And in many cases, if they want to go really extreme, they can get up to a 40-inch tire. 40-inch tires.
So how much worse does the truck get on those tires on the road? So I get the benefit off-road, but what do you do to the car in terms of on-road ability and feeling?
Oh, you can kiss your gas mileage goodbye. That's the first thing that you're going to notice. There's no doubt about that. Depending on how nubby the tires are, the road noise just comes with the territory. There's nothing you can do about that, really. Now, because of the sidewall variance and how the sidewall of that tire is a lot bigger, and it's usually a 10-ply tire, it's a really, really tough tire. You are going to get a bit more sway when you're driving just because of the sidewall being a little bit more cushioning, especially if you have it set at a lower PSI on the tires. You're going to get that slight wobble. I mean, it's like driving a barn door.
Can you get those self-inflatable wheels? Did you press a button and inflate and deflate them?
Honestly, I don't know. I mean, I haven't seen anything available on the market that people can just go out and buy, but I'm sure there's a way to do it. I'm positive about the fact there's a way to do it.
So tell me about that LED thing that you liked, but you said something about the flares, how that would be inconvenient.
The integration of the LEDs on the fender flares on the front of the car is really nice. It's a really eye-catching thing. It looks cool. The only hesitation that I would have is, once you start upgrading the Jeep and you get into lift kits and you get into bigger tires, most people will want to go with what's called a flat fender setup. And the only reason that you do that is to give yourself more clearance. If you're out on the trail and you're rock crawling and you really need that flex and you need that space for the tire to tuck into the fender, you have to get a setup of
so that would obviously delete that part, right?
It would completely delete that part. I don't know what sort of electronics, if anything, is entailed underneath. I don't know if they've done any crazy wiring, which I highly doubt. It's usually a straight up setup. But again, now instead of just getting a flat fender setup, you have to start thinking to yourself, how am I going to tie in my lights to those fenders? I mean, a lot of companies that I've seen on the market are starting to integrate little lights on the fenders to accommodate that. But with the previous generation, for example, because everything was incorporated into the front grille, you can just rip those fenders right out, put whatever you wanted in, and call it a day. And that's pretty much it. Again, there is so many upgrades that you can do to cater it to what you want and your purposes and your needs and your sense of adventure takes you in different directions.
So how many windshields have you replaced in your JK?
On the first one before I sadly lost it to a really bad...
that video is on YouTube, right? We can put a link to it?
The video is not, but there's definitely pictures. If you want to check out some of the pictures of the aftermath, you can definitely check out my my Instagram page. It's Night Crawlers 4x4. What a disaster that day was. It was a lot of fun. Great story out of it, but unfortunately I'm down a Jeep. Windshield question 3.
Nice. Well, apparently in this model they changed the rake of the windshield to make it more aerodynamic.
Yes.
So maybe that's going to help a little bit with stone chips. Although I think I see one here. If this is not bird poo, then it might be a stone chip. But yeah, cracked windshields. I'm guessing. Well, it's still going to happen.
It's still going to happen, and there's not much you can really do in the sense that when it's a sports car, the rake of the windshield, it's on such an angle. Yeah. It's a lot easier for something to hit and deflect upwards. Yeah. This is a flat windshield. No matter how much rake we put on it, it's a flat windshield. And a lot of times, the second one that I cracked right across is I was following somebody on a trail. They got stuck. They gave it a bit more throttle. Some rocks flew out, and I was too close. And it hit the windshield, and right away the spider crack.
Nice.
Luckily, though, replacing the windshields is not that difficult and not that expensive. If you want to go for the original, understand, original parts are the best way to go. But if you're the kind of person that's always in the trails, you might want to reconsider some aftermarket components.
Cool. So how's life with a Jeep? So the days that you're not out on the trail, the days that you're commuting to work and you're stuck in traffic for 2 hours inside your Jeep, I can only paint the picture so much in the review, but you have one, you live it every day. You want to go for a trail? Oh, they blocked it.
They blocked it again.
Sons of bitch.
That's okay. There's another spot that I'd like to try out, the lockers and the suspension and just the crawl range. There's a couple of spots we can check out. But life in a Jeep is, it's interesting. Again, you know, anybody that asks me, oh, how should I get a Jeep? The first question I ask them is, are you going to be using it?
Everybody asks me, is this car cold inside in winter? Why would that be a question?
Well, there really is not much in terms of insulation. I mean, you're looking at such thin doors, it's all plastic panels. There's no crazy insulation in the truck. I mean, it incorporated the roof insulation, which we can see up here on the padding, which helps a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, it's plastic.
Like, is there like a breeze or something? Like, does the roof leak? Is there issues like that?
Yeah, I mean, you're often going to hear the expression, it's a Jeep thing. Well, that's one of the things. I mean, as the seals deteriorate over time because of use and elements and, you know, weather conditions, you're going to get the leak. I specifically remember driving somewhere on a rainy day with my uncle in the car, who was, well, not necessarily used to this lifestyle. And I remember taking a turn, and all of a sudden he got really wet. Because there was just water pouring in from where the Freedom top meets the actual back section of the roof, and there was just a bunch of water pouring in. He looked at me. He said, "What the hell happened?" I said, "It's a Jeep thing. It's just the way it is. It's going to happen." And there really isn't a whole lot you can do about that.
Taking turns and making people wet sounds like something you would be doing in a Lamborghini.
Exactly, not necessarily in a...
And not with your uncle.
Now, I hope to God not. One of the things that you have to remember with the Jeep is that you're going to always be behind the pack. I mean, there's times that you get onto that freeway or the highway, whatever you want to call it, and you think you have that window of opportunity to merge and get in front, and you hear a lot of noise, especially if your car is lifted with big tires, but there's not a lot of movement happening.
But this one feels, it goes. I mean, it feels like it's quicker.
It does feel like it's quicker, and it does feel like it's a situation where you'll get up and going. But again, that's on a stock setup, which is great. So far, it feels awesome. But again, once you start adding the weight, you start adding the accessories, the winches, the tires, the lift kits, the steel bumper upgrades, if it doesn't have what this one has, which is a steel bumper upgrade from the factory, you're starting to add a lot of weight, and by nature, it's going to slow the truck down. And that's when you start really calculating your entrances. You think to yourself, I think I can. hope for the best. Yeah, so we're just at an incline here. We're looking at some wet grass. It's got a little bit of mud on the underneath.
There we go.
It's a pretty decently steep climb. I'm gonna test it out.
All right. So you probably wanna. Hi, Bobby.
Hey.
So you can put it in 4 low.
I'm gonna test it in 4 high first.
Okay.
Just to see how the transmission responds to the incline.
Okay.
I mean, with these cars here, once you get the lockers involved, this is not an issue for the Jeep whatsoever. But I just want to see how it performs with the just the regular 4 high.
Okay.
And
so you're in it right now.
Yep. So we're in 4 high. Just gonna do a slow approach to it. We're gonna back right down afterwards. But just want to see how the transmission handles it being an automatic and how the Jeep generally performs. We've lost traction there. Again, it has a lot to do with the fact that tires and the wetness of the ground.
Well, it is like 2 degrees out there, so it's kind of like freezing already.
Yeah. Now, the one thing that I love about the Rubicon is that, as you've mentioned, it does come with stock lockers. The lockers are something that you will not appreciate until you've used them. And the crawl ratio on the Rubicon is just fantastic. There we go. We're in 4 low now, and crawl ratio on these again is incredibly good. So we're just going to give it a shot in 4 low and see how it works out for us. And that's the difference between 4 low and 4 high. Where we lost traction there, right now, we just climbed right to the top. I'm going to end it here as I honestly don't know what's on the other side.
Okay.
Right on this side, we want to go on a downhill slope. And then the approach angles and the departure angles on these trucks are fantastic. So for the most part, you won't have to worry about bottoming out, especially on the average trails that people will be taking these on. But that was a great ratio, great crawl. It didn't feel like it was struggling at any point or about to get stuck by any means. I'm impressed.
And that was without even locking any diffs, right?
No lockers, no diffs, just straight up 4-low. But one thing that I have to bring up, just because it scared me the first time I used it, when you're going into 4-low and you hear a bunch of crunching and clanking and noises, right? That's normal. Don't worry about it. It doesn't feel like it's supposed to be doing it, but believe me, it is. What I'd like to try is I just want to try it at slightly higher speed and just go around a couple of the bends and really feel how that body roll is and how that suspension setup is.
Go for it.
And you can feel all the mud.
All the mud on the tires.
Yeah, sure. Sorry. Again, you're not buying this car for handling purposes, but you'd like to know that you can avoid something if need be.
It has to be able to turn, right?
Exactly. And honestly, right now, just going through some of these zigzags, it feels pretty damn planted. It doesn't feel like I'm going to lose control. I mean, we're not going crazy speeds. We're doing about 80 around these corners, but it feels very planted. Steering wheel is responsive. It tells you exactly where it is. It's not as vague and out to lunch as the previous generation car was, that's for sure. Overall, I like it. I would definitely consider it.
That was my question. Would this be an upgrade? Like, should you, if you already own a JK?
If you already own a JK, honestly, the answer to that is, have you modified your JK? If you've modified your JK, stick to it. But if you're in the market of considering a Jeep, this would be definitely an option that I would definitely go for. If I was just, trying to get into the Jeep world and I needed a new ride and I wanted something that can fulfill that need of getting out of the city, I would definitely consider it.
So last question, you are a new dad.
Yep.
How's the Jeep working out for you with a kid?
Oh, it's great. Everything's plastic. You can throw things everywhere and that doesn't bother me.
And you can power wash.
Absolutely.
Vomit and poo.
Everything.
Food.
Everything. If you're asking me how the baby seats fit and stuff like that, you know what? It's a good fit. I don't feel like being uncomfortable. The space in the back is definitely ample. You can, the little guy can sit in the back, stretch his legs. It's definitely not a small car. Comfort-wise, it's good.
What about power?
Let's try it. Well, you're right about the torque flight.
The gearbox is, it's hard to say, but like automatic gearboxes, I'm starting to like them a lot more than manuals, which is like, it goes against every bone in my body, but you can't just, you have to acknowledge that these automatics are getting so good that I'd rather have them over a manual, especially when you're going off-road. That's another available hand for you to use on other stuff. So
yes it is. But for the most part, like, the reason that I didn't go with the automatic transmission on my JK is because the previous model JK was only a 5-speed automatic transmission. It was pretty bad for any sort of towing. You had to upgrade it, you had to put transmission coolers on it, you had to be careful of where your RPMs were for towing anything. The gas mileage on it was not the best just because it's a 5-speed. I mean, when we add the 8-speed transmission to this now, it feels good. It doesn't feel like it's struggling to find out what gear it should be in, and it feels like it's in the right gear. It's smooth. There's no abrupt shifting by no means. And you're right, when it's off-roading, it allows you to do certain things that you can't necessarily do on a manual. For example, left foot brake. Sometimes you just need that left foot to operate the brake so you can get over whatever obstacle you're trying to get over. It feels good.
So overall score out of 10. You may have the honors for this one.
In an attempt to make it more utilitarian, there's a lot of technology in these Jeeps now, which my worry would be, is it going to cause a problem if you're driving it off-road, if you're going through water, if you're going through deep mud, if you're, if we tie everything together and we think about it from
as a Jeep, okay, so
as a Jeep, not as an owner that has one and does whatever.
Right. And considering what it's made for, don't go comparing it against, high performance or road-oriented SUVs.
Absolutely not. For what it's meant for, the features it provides, the integration of the technology,
and price, because it's pretty expensive.
It is. I mean, I did price one out just out of curiosity.
It's just over 60.
It's just over 60.
Sitting
Exactly.
right here.
Oh, there's another red JK. I would.
Is that a thing? Do you wave at each other when you
Oh,
want
the Jeep
Jeeps?
wave, yeah. And you get mad at each other if you don't wave back.
Nice.
It's definitely a thing. It's not just a myth. It's a Jeep wave. It's a. Let's not get into that one. It's a Jeep thing. I can't rate it a 10 out of 10 only because of the fact that there are things that the Jeep by nature has that make it a Jeep.
Mm-hmm.
I would give it an 8 out of 10. I'm comfortable to give it an 8 out of 10. Again, incorporating everything, transmissions that I've experienced, suspension, technology integration, sound deadening. It is a lot quieter than the previous generation. That's for sure. Yeah, I would definitely give it an 8 out of 10 in terms of everyday use, everyday comfort, and how it overall feels.
And that's the first ever Bobby scorer on Motorpress.
That's correct.
So where do people find you, Bobby? We mentioned your Instagram
you
page.
You can follow me on Instagram. Try and post weekly, if not daily. Night Crawlers 4x4 is the name, the handle. Again, Night Crawlers 4x4.
But you also sell BMWs at Parkview BMW.
I do, yeah. I'm actually a BMW guy from a sports car perspective, true and true. Definitely love them. Parkview BMW is where you can find me if you have any interest in BMWs. New, used, you name it, we got it, and we'll be happy to help you out.
Cool.
And if you're thinking about upgrading your Jeep, follow me on Instagram. As
He's
we
your
do
man.
we do have tags, and we can definitely help you out with any upgrades that you want to do to your Jeep. Suspension, big brake kits, you name it. Again, we've got it. Night Crawlers 4x4.